What if I told you the Scandinavian beer in your hand right now is probably not Scandinavian at all? That Norwegian Pilsner you are drinking? The one with the proud Nordic heritage on the label. It is owned by a Danish multinational headquartered in Copenhagen. But that is not even the scandal that should concern you most. Carlsberg, the company behind almost every major Scandinavian beer brand, dragged its feet on exiting Russia after the invasion of Ukraine. They promised to leave in March 2022. They were still there 18 months later. When Vladimir Putin's government finally seized their business in July 2023, investigators allege the assets ended up in the hands of Gennady Timchenko, a sanctioned oligarch and close friend of Vladimir Putin, purchased at 5 times below market value. The beer sitting in your refrigerator right now could be funding corporate negligence, destroying independent brewing heritage, or hiding behind Nordic flags while the profits flow to multinational shareholders on the other side of the world. I am about to expose 7 Scandinavian beer brands you need to avoid, reveal which alternatives are actually worth your money, and teach you exactly how to spot quality beer so the industry can never fool you again. Number 1. Carlsberg. If you have Carlsberg in your refrigerator right now, you are not alone. It is one of the most recognized beer brands on the planet. That distinctive green label has been sold in more than 150 countries, around 30 to 40 kroner for a standard 6-pack in Scandinavian supermarkets, cheaper elsewhere. Carlsberg is the 6th largest brewery in the world by revenue. They employ around 41,000 people across Europe and Asia. They own literally dozens of other beer brands. When you buy beer in Scandinavia, chances are your money is flowing to Copenhagen, regardless of what the label says. They do not tell you how dominant they have become. Carlsberg does not just make Carlsberg. They own Tuborg. They own Ringnes, Norway's largest brewery. They own Pripps Blå and Falcon in Sweden. They own Kronenbourg in France, Holsten in Germany, Superbock in Portugal. The appearance of choice in the beer aisle is largely an illusion. Most roads lead to Copenhagen. The Russia controversy is where this becomes genuinely troubling. In March 2022, days after Russia invaded Ukraine, Carlsberg announced they would exit the Russian market. CEO Ceased Hart said the decision meant Carlsberg would have no presence in Russia. Other companies like BP and Shell moved quickly. Carlsberg waited. 18 months later, they were still there. Professor Jeffrey Sonnenfeld from the Yale School of Management, who maintains a list rating companies on their Russia exit, called Carlsberg more cynical than Danone. He said they were a poster child of early mover courage and conscience, but 6 months later, had nothing to show for it. In July 2023, Putin signed a decree seizing Carlsberg's Russian business, Baltika Breweries, the largest brewery in Russia and Eastern Europe. Carlsberg had written off nearly $1 billion in assets. They called it an illegal business seizure. Here is what investigators found. The Russian Anti-Corruption Foundation, founded by the late opposition leader Alexei Navalny, alleged that the real buyer of Baltika was not the 2 managers publicly named by Carlsberg. It was oligarch Gennady Timchenko, a close friend of Vladimir Putin who is under Western sanctions. According to their investigation, in 2023, experts estimated Carlsberg's Russian business at 150 to 200 billion rubles. The purchase price was 34 billion rubles, 5 times cheaper than market value. Carlsberg said they had vetted the buyer and Danish authorities approved the sale. But in December 2024, the company that bought Baltika entered court-supervised reconstruction and is now being dissolved. The future ownership of Russia's largest brewery is once again uncertain. Carlsberg refused to comment on whether they informed Danish officials about the latest developments. This is not ancient history. This is happening right now, and the environmental record is equally concerning. In Nepal, Carlsberg's Gorkha brewery was found to be polluting the Narayani River, one of Nepal's most important rivers and home to several endangered species. Water samples showed pollution levels exceeding maximum permissible limits in both Nepal and Denmark. Experts estimated there was risk of oxygen deficiency and fish kill. Initially, Carlsberg dismissed the findings. They claimed the samples were collected incorrectly. Only after months of pressure did they finally admit their brewery was indeed a source of pollution. They identified spent grain handling and rainwater runoff as culprits. When you buy Carlsberg, you are buying from a company that promised to leave Russia, dragged out the exit, had their assets allegedly end up with a sanctioned Putin ally at a fraction of market value, and polluted rivers in developing countries while initially denying responsibility. The green label on your beer is not as clean as it appears. Number 2. Tuborg, the classic Danish Pilsner, that distinctive red and white label. Tuborg has been part of Danish culture since 1873 when Philip Heyman and a group of investors founded the brewery on a harbor in Hellerup, north of Copenhagen. Around 25 to 35 kroner for a standard pack in Denmark. Slightly more expensive in Norway and Sweden due to alcohol taxes. Tuborg markets itself as an independent Danish brewing tradition. The label emphasizes heritage. The advertising celebrates over 150 years of brewing history. They do not tell you Tuborg has not been independent for over 50 years. Carlsberg merged with Tuborg in 1970. The brewery that built its reputation on Danish craftsmanship is now just another brand in Carlsberg's portfolio, produced at Carlsberg facilities, managed by Carlsberg executives, with profits flowing to Carlsberg shareholders. Every piece of heritage marketing on a Tuborg bottle is technically true, but functionally misleading. Yes, Tuborg was founded in 1873. Yes, the recipe has Danish origins. But the independent brewery that created that recipe ceased to exist in 1970. There is more concerning information about what happened in Russia. When Carlsberg's Russian business was seized, Russian courts imposed interim measures preventing the registration of trademark terminations for several brands, including Tuborg. Carlsberg tried to terminate the licensing agreements. Russian courts ruled the termination invalid. Tuborg continued being produced in Russia under Baltica, the company now allegedly controlled by Putin's allies. Your purchase of Tuborg anywhere in the world supports a brand whose trademark rights in Russia were seized by courts acting under Putin's authority. The brand identity you are buying has been legally hijacked. The brewing process itself raises questions about authenticity. Tuborg is brewed at Carlsberg facilities around the world using what they call Danish standards. The flagship Pilsner is a bottom-fermented lager brewed on lager malt. They describe the taste as mild and fresh, with an aroma of flowers and grain. What they do not advertise is that industrial lager production often involves adjuncts, processing aids, and accelerated production timelines that traditional brewing methods would never use. The foam on your Tuborg may be stabilized with propylene glycol alginate, a seaweed extract added to industrial beers to create the appearance of quality. German beer brewed under the Reinheitsgebot purity law cannot contain such additives. Scandinavian industrial lagers can and often do. You think you are buying Danish heritage. You are buying a Carlsberg subsidiary brand that may contain additives banned under traditional brewing standards with trademark rights partially controlled by Russian courts, produced wherever Carlsberg finds it most profitable. Number 3. Ringnes, Norway's largest brewery. Founded in Oslo in 1876 by brothers Amund and Elif Ringnes, that distinctive label has been part of Norwegian culture for nearly 150 years. The company even sponsored the polar expeditions of Fridtjof Nansen and Otto Sverdrup, and funded the construction of the exploration vessel Fram, around 35 to 45 kroner for a six-pack in Norwegian supermarkets. Higher in bars and restaurants due to Norway's extreme alcohol taxes, Ringnes dominates the Norwegian beer market. The Pilsner, introduced in 1886, was among the first beers in Norway brewed with pure yeast. For generations, Ringnes meant Norwegian beer. Then came 2004. In 2000, Norwegian conglomerate Orkla made a deal with Carlsberg. Pripps Ringnes, the combined Swedish-Norwegian brewing business, became part of Carlsberg in exchange for Orkla owning 40% of Carlsberg. In 2004, Carlsberg bought out Orkla's shares. For the first time in its history, Ringnes was entirely owned by a foreign company. Christian Ringnes, a descendant of the founders, gave an interview to Dagens Næringsliv, Norway's daily business newspaper. His words still resonate. A country without a leading beer brand is like a man without potency. He called the sale a national catastrophe. Today, Carlsberg controls approximately 55% of the Norwegian beer market through Ringnes, and its associated brands including Arendals, Dals, Frydenlund, Nordlands, and Tau. The appearance of choice in Norwegian beer is largely an illusion. Most brands trace back to Copenhagen. The Independent Brewing Association noticed what was happening. In 2022, Aas Bryggeri, Norway's oldest brewery, founded in 1834 and still family-owned after 5 generations, resigned from Norway's Brewery and Beverage Association. General Manager Christian A.K. Aas made the reason clear. For us, Norwegian ownership is important. He cited changes in ownership at Norway's 2 leading brewery groups, Ringnes and Hansaborg, as reasons for leaving. When even industry insiders conclude the association no longer represents Norwegian interests, something fundamental has changed. Ringnes Pilsner is described as well-balanced with a light hoppy and malty aroma, a beautiful golden color with a full yet dry mouthfeel. Reviewers on beer rating sites are less generous. One Norwegian reviewer noted that like all Norwegian Pilsners, Ringnes is aggressively carbonated and at best an average Pilsner. Multiple reviewers describe it as a beer they drink when nothing else is available. The heritage is real. The expedition sponsorship is real. The 150 years of Norwegian brewing history are real. But the independence that made Ringnes meaningful is gone. When you buy Ringens, your money flows to Copenhagen, not Oslo. The Norwegian flag on the label is marketing, not ownership. And before we continue to the next brand, take a second to subscribe and click like. It helps push this investigation to the people who need to see it. Number 4. Norrlands Guld. Gold of Norrland. That iconic Swedish beer introduced in 1965 by Sollefteå Bryggeri. The label celebrates northern Sweden, the rugged landscape, the laid-back lifestyle. The advertising campaign featuring Ingemar, a stereotyped Norrland man living a simple life with friends, has been running for decades. The catchphrase asks, why not be yourself for a moment? Around 20 to 30 kroner for a standard pack in Swedish supermarkets. Norrlands Guld is one of the best-selling beers in Sweden. According to Systembolaget, the state alcohol monopoly, Norrlands Guld Export sold 16 million liters in 2019. It is deeply ingrained in Swedish beer culture, associated with Swedish summer and outdoor activities. The brewery has changed hands multiple times. The original Sollefteå Bryggeri created Norrlands Guld. In 1989, the brand was acquired by Spendrups Bryggeri, one of Sweden's largest breweries. Spendrups is Swedish family-owned, which separates Norrlands Guld from the Carlsberg-dominated landscape. But family-owned does not mean craft quality. The beer itself reveals what industrial production means. Beer reviewers describe Norrlands Guld as having a sweet malty odor, mingling with a sharp, grainy scent, notes of metallic alcohol, and a sourish, grainy bite. One reviewer noted the flavor is medium intense, with a rather strong sweetness, followed by moderate bitterness. Another described it as a malty lager with a bitter streak. These are not craft beer descriptors. These are the characteristics of industrial lager production at scale. Sweet, grainy, metallic notes indicate accelerated fermentation and cost-optimized ingredients. The marketing plays on regional identity while the product delivers mass-market uniformity. The Ingemar commercials celebrate authenticity and simplicity. The beer itself is produced using industrial methods designed for consistency and cost efficiency, rather than distinctive flavor. The Northern Swedish identity on the label does not translate to Northern Swedish brewing craftsmanship in the bottle. When independent reviewers gave Norrlands Guld export ratings, the scores clustered around 2.5 to 3 out of 5. Acceptable but unremarkable. A beer people drink because it is available and affordable, not because it is exceptional. You are paying for the marketing of Swedish identity, not the substance of Swedish craft. Number 5. Pripps Blå, Sweden's biggest and most popular beer. That iconic blue can has been a fixture of Swedish summers since 1959. For many Swedes, Pripps Blå is synonymous with archipelago life, community, and tradition. The brand name even comes from a nickname. The original beer was called Pripps Export, but Swedes left so many blue cans on park lawns, they started calling them Blåsipor hepaticas, after the blue flower. Around 15 to 25 kroner for a standard pack in Swedish supermarkets. one of the cheapest beers on the shelf. Pripps was founded in Gothenburg by Johann Albrecht Pripp in 1828, nearly 200 years of Swedish brewing heritage. The label says brewed from natural ingredients on the basis of old brewing traditions that date back to 1828. Technically accurate, functionally misleading. Carlsberg owns Pripps. The Swedish heritage brand was absorbed into the Danish multinational in 2000, when Carlsberg and Orkla merged their brewing activities. Here is what the fine print reveals about the actual beer. Pripps Blå is brewed with exactly 51% barley. That is not a quality standard. That is the legal minimum amount of barley required by Swedish law for a product to be called beer. Pripps Blå is literally the cheapest possible formulation that can legally be labeled as Swedish beer. The remaining 49% can be adjuncts, corn, rice, cheaper fermentable sugars that reduce production costs while diluting flavor and body. The law allows it. The marketing hides it. One beer journalist described Pripps Blå as an inexpensive beer brewed to the minimum legal specification. The low price is not a consumer benefit. It is a reflection of minimum investment in ingredients. The heritage marketing is particularly cynical in this context. The label talks about old brewing traditions dating back to 1828, but Johann Albrecht Pripp, in 1828, was not brewing with exactly 51% barley to hit a legal minimum. He was brewing with whatever produced the best beer his customers would pay for. The traditions have been abandoned. Only the marketing remains. Pripps Blå is now produced at Carlsberg's Falkenberg facility in Sweden, the same facility that produces Falcon and other Carlsberg brands. The distinctiveness implied by heritage branding does not exist in production reality. When you drink Pripps Blå, you are drinking a Danish-owned, minimum specification industrial lager, marketed with Swedish tradition imagery that has no connection to actual production methods. Number 6. Hansa, Bergen's local brewery. Founded in 1891 by Waldemar Staud Platou, when he acquired the minor local brewery Det Semske Bryggeri. The name Hansa reflects Bergen's history as one of the Hanseatic League trading cities. For over a century, Hansa meant Bergen beer, around 35 to 45 kroner for a six-pack in Norwegian supermarkets. Hansa was Norway's second-largest brewery. The company merged with Østfold-based Borg Bryggerier in 1997 to form Hansa Borg Bryggerier. The combined company operated breweries in Bergen, Sarpsborg, and Kristiansand. They produced Hansa, Valdemars, Borg, and CB beers, plus Heineken and Klausthaler under license. For years, Hansa Borg was controlled by the Egenes family, who had owned Borg since 1905. Other shareholders included Swedish-based Spendrups and Danish-based Royal Unibrew, which held 25%. Then came January 2022. Royal Unibrew, the Danish brewing group headquartered in Faubourg, announced an agreement to acquire the remaining 75% of Hansa Borg for 3.3 billion Norwegian kroner. The Norwegian Competition Authority approved the acquisition in May 2022. The deal closed shortly after. The headline from industry observers was stark. The two largest Norwegian brewery groups are now in Danish hands. Ringnes had been owned by Carlsberg since the early 2000s. With Royal Unibrew's acquisition of Hansa Borg, Denmark now controls almost the entire Norwegian beer market. Aas Bryggeri, the oldest independent brewery, produces around 300,000 hectoliters annually. Carlsberg's Ringnes operation and Royal Unibrew's Hansa Borg dwarf that figure. The impact on retail demonstrates how this consolidation affects consumers. In January 2022, Norwegian grocery chain Rema $1,000 announced a best friend strategy concentrating purchases with a few strong suppliers. They chose Carlsberg's Ringnes as their exclusive beer partner and delisted Hansa Borg and other regional brewers. The results were immediate. Rema stores sold 860 hectoliters less beer in the first 4 weeks compared to the previous year. Competitors Extra and Kiwi increased sales by 2,900 and 2,090 hectoliters respectively. Norwegian consumers were loyal to their regional beers and voted with their wallets. Rema's CEO Ole Robert Rayton admitted the delisting of regional brewers was the main cause of lower sales. The company appeared ready to reverse course, but the damage to independent brewing had already been done. Hansa Pilsner reviewers on rating sites describe it as a malty Pilsner of acceptable quality. One Norwegian reviewer noted he has had it many times, mostly on tap when no other beers were available. Scores cluster around 2.5 to 3 out of 5. Adequate but uninspiring. The Bergen heritage is real. The Hanseatic history is real. The 130 years of local brewing tradition are real. But Hansa is now Danish-owned, part of a multinational portfolio, with profits flowing to Faubourg rather than Bergen. Number 7. Falcon, the Swedish lager with 125 years of brewing tradition. Founded in 1896 by John L. Skantz, who searched all over Sweden for pure spring water before finding the right source in Falkenberg. The anniversary marketing celebrated Falcon as the beer of choice for Swedes who crave pure and rich taste. Around 20 to 30 kroner for a standard pack in Swedish supermarkets. Falcon built its reputation on quality ingredients and brewing craftsmanship. The founder's approach was driven by an ambition never to take the easy route. Being around for more than a century reflected a company built with passion for the craft. The independence ended decades ago. In 1977, Pripps acquired Falcon. Later, Unilever owned it. In 1996, Carlsberg bought Falcon from Unilever and changed the brewery name to Carlsberg Sverige, Carlsberg, Sweden. The brand that celebrated 125 years of independence had actually been a Carlsberg subsidiary for nearly 30 of those years. Today, the Falkenberg facility is Carlsberg's Swedish production hub. It produces not just Falcon, but Carlsberg, Pripps Blå, Summersby Cider, Pepsi, and various other beverages. The craft brewery, founded in pursuit of pure spring water, is now an industrial production facility churning out corporate beverages at scale. Beer reviewers describe Falcon Export as having a Swedish aroma, fizzy mouthfeel, Swedish bland flavor, and low bitterness. One reviewer rated it 2 out of 5, describing it as not good. Another noted a sweet, malty odor mingling with a metallic scent of alcohol and a sourish, grainy bite. Scores cluster around 2.5 to 3 out of 5. The 125-year anniversary marketing emphasized tradition, heritage, and quality. The actual product delivers industrial lager characteristics indistinguishable from other mass-market offerings. The pattern across all 7 brands is consistent. Heritage marketing, corporate ownership, industrial production, minimum specification ingredients, prices that reflect cost optimization rather than quality investment, profits flowing to Copenhagen, Faubourg, or multinational shareholders rather than local communities. So what should Scandinavian consumers actually buy? Here is the truth about beer in Scandinavia. The market is dominated by 2 categories: industrial lagers from multinational conglomerates using minimum specification ingredients and heritage marketing to justify premium pricing, and genuine craft breweries producing authentic beer with quality ingredients and traditional methods. If you want actual Scandinavian beer, here is what to look for. Look for independent ownership. Breweries like Lervig in Stavanger, Norway, founded in 2003 after Carlsberg bought and closed Stavanger's only brewery. Their head brewer, Mike Murphy, has created internationally recognized beers, including Lucky Jack, now the best-selling ale in Norway. Lervig remains independent and exports to more than 30 countries. Nøgne Ø in Grimstad, Norway is another legitimate option. They refuse to adjust beer to mass taste, instead expressing terroir, technique, and brewing passion. They have become one of the most influential European craft brands. In Denmark, look for Mikkeller and 2 Øl. Both were founded by people explicitly rejecting what they called nauseating macro lagers. They have pioneered craft brewing innovation and proven that Danish beer does not have to mean Carlsberg. In Sweden, Omnipollo, Stigbergets, and Poppels represent genuine craft alternatives. Swedish craft breweries use locally sourced ingredients like juniper, elderflower, and cloudberries, giving their beers distinct Nordic identity that industrial lagers cannot replicate. Consider German beers brewed under the Reinheitsgebot purity law. This 500-year-old regulation prohibits artificial aromas, colorants, stabilizers, enzymes, emulsifiers, and preservatives. German brewers must master the art of brewing from 4 natural ingredients alone: water, barley, hops, and yeast. No foam stabilizers, no minimum specification formulations, no adjuncts. Price is not always an indicator of quality, but consistently cheap prices often indicate cost-optimized ingredients. When Pripps Blow is significantly cheaper than craft alternatives, the price difference reflects different production standards. The 51% barley minimum is exactly that, a minimum. Check where profits flow. Local independent breweries reinvest in their communities. Multinational conglomerates distribute profits to shareholders worldwide. Your purchasing choice is also an economic choice about where wealth accumulates. 7 brands. 6 owned by Danish multinationals. 1 owned by a Swedish industrial producer. Heritage marketing obscuring corporate ownership. Minimum specification brewing sold as tradition. Environmental controversies. And Russia exit scandals buried beneath nostalgic label designs. This is Scandinavia's beer industry, and most consumers have no idea. Which brand surprised you the most? Comment down below. And thanks for watching. Stay informed.